All right. Thanks again for coming today. I am Marcos Estevez, working at Preply as a site reliability engineer. And I will be your host today in this presentation about SLOs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But first, let me give you some context. So as you may know, Preply.com is an online educational web portal where we connect tutors with learners, covering a variety of subjects, and we mainly focus on languages, but we are not limiting ourselves to those. So in this platform, you can also learn music or programming skills, or we have even teachers that teach how to properly manage your public speaking skills. So also, it's worth to say that in the company, we are currently more than 100 tech engineers that are continuously pushing code to production. And while enjoying very good coffee and working environment that it's awesome. So if you are interested in knowing more, maybe you can reach me after this presentation. And well, according to Cloudflare, we are serving around 250 million requests per day. Cloudflare, for those that you may don't know, is our content delivery network, and also we use it as reverse proxy. And it's worth to remark as well that the company strives to promote the SRE culture. So we have a dedicated team, which I am part of. So I believe with all this information, we can move forward. So why do we need SLOs? In the SRE culture, the service level objectives are meant to measure the availability and the reliability of a service. Said otherwise, we could be measuring customer satisfaction, but taking into account quantifiable metrics on topics like performance, uptime, or even successful requests that we are serving. Also, SLOs can be used to help us to prioritize tasks and efforts, as they will identify the areas where we have to focus on, that the ones that might require a bit more attention, right? So probably our managers would be happy if we have them, the SLOs, because that way they could have an objective way to prioritize one task amongst the other. Or maybe no. Does everyone catch the scent of this presentation? Okay. The goal is that we don't end like this guy, and we have to properly understand how to start building our SLOs. So let's start trying to build our first SLO. Let's say that we want to measure our availability. So we take our successful requests and we divide them against the total. And then that gives us, well, a pretty high number, right? We see here 4 nines, which is pretty nice. So then we have to decide what's our goal, what's our threshold that we are putting ourselves that will determine if we are delivering a good enough service to our customers. That number there also can be considered, can be named as SLI, service level indicator, that will be varying over time. And the SLO is the ratio of that number over time. Okay. But one moment, if we are setting all this scheme to consider our success, won't that also mean that we are setting a scheme to expose our failures? That's true. But SRE culture also strives to establish a culture of accountability and ownership. When engineers are responsible for meeting specific SLOs, they are also incentivized to take ownership for the systems that they are responsible for. Also, when some issue arises, that means that they have to work collaboratively into addressing them. So going back to the initial SLO, please, let's raise your hand if you think that this is a good way to measure our availability. Does anyone agree? We are not sure.
Maybe you should add another one. I cannot say the one because you're, saying something. It would be good to have another metric.
Okay, for availability, you mean? More human way. Okay. Okay, maybe. We'll see. We'll see later. So, okay. Over time, that ratio may drop, may go up again. And we want to have some alert that will notify us, but not when we reach the red zone, okay? So we want to be alerted once our burn rate of our SLO budget is getting down, like it's calculating when it be over before the period of time that you want to establish. So yeah, said otherwise, we are measuring how fast are we consuming this error budget. So imagine that this actually happened in our company and we want to check what happened there. So we are proceed to investigate. Okay, what did we discover after the investigation? Apparently everything looked great, but we saw, so all the features of the web were working perfectly, but there were some analytic endpoints that were not healthy, so that they were not receiving those requests. So that made our metric go down. And the SLO went to the red zone. What happens there? Because this SLO is not accounting really the user satisfaction, because they don't care that our analytics endpoint is bad. Nothing was broken for them. So maybe this was not a really great SLO, right? Do we agree with this statement? Okay, so maybe what happens if I introduce you a different set of customers? Our data team. So our company is a data-driven company, and analytics are very, very important for the business, and it's considered a critical and core service of our tech stack. So in this case, would that be great that we are considering this SLO as a valid SLO to measure our customer satisfaction? Any hand raised? Do you think it's good? Okay, I see some dots around the crowd, so let's try to clarify that. Let's start our movie about the SLOs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll start with the good ones, okay? With a small hint to identify them. So we'll say that an SLO has to be simple, understandable, and quite obvious, and it has to measure our customer satisfaction over a service. Here's our first example. Let's analyze it. All right, so our SRE team is responsible to maintain and set up the VPN so that all our coworkers can connect remotely in a secure way. So we are measuring the HTTP success rate on our VPN. Yeah, let me explain a bit the screenshot. So this is, we are managing our SLOs using Datadog. So we can see here that we have defined a threshold, a target of 99.95. We consider that we are good enough with that level of availability because it's not a critical service. Let's say that our customers, the ones that pay us, are not affected if the VPN is down. And we see that the corresponding error budget, okay? So far, the numbers are looking quite good. So yeah, we also track 3 different periods of time, 7, 30, 90. That gives us like a wider view so that over time, if our SLOs are varying, we can detect we're getting better, maybe worse, and so. Okay, so I believe, I don't know if you will agree with me, but I believe it's quite simple. It's quite understandable why we are measuring this. So, okay, we are counting also our coworkers as our customers, at least from our team. So let's say that this is a good one. And let's move on with the following one that we want to decide if it's good, bad, maybe ugly. So this one, if you remember what we talked before about the uptime or availability, we are trying to measure here that same SLO. as we tried to build before. So here you can see that we are taking the ingress metrics and dividing the non-500s that we are considering 500 is our error rate. So whatever is not 500, we consider correct. And we divide against the total. So that gives us the ratio of success. And we see here those many nines that looks pretty fine for us. And to fit this, we are using our Nginx ingress controller metrics. So does anyone here think that we are doing something wrong? Any suggestion maybe?
What about the 400?
Yeah, so we are considering that one user hitting a 404 might be expected if they manipulate the URL. So that does not mean for us that essentially is a bad service. 403 as well, if you are not logged in. So it's expected that you log in to access some private space.
What about 400?
Yeah, 400. That would be, maybe we should consider that one. Yeah, but yeah, that's a good point. Okay, but I wanted to focus on a different topic. Okay, if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, yeah, I mentioned that we were using Cloudflare, okay, as a reverse proxy and content delivery network CDN. So in this case, we are going to consider it bad. Why? Because many of the requests will be directly served by the CDN and will not reach our ingress controller service. So we are not having the complete view of whether we are serving, delivering a good service to our customers or not. So how should we turn this into a good one? So let's try to choose a different source for our metrics. So in this case, you see that we changed all our query, and we are considering all those as acceptable status codes. Okay, 400 is also considered as correct. Yeah, so I'm not gonna go in depth into why, but let's consider that we are closer to the customer so that we have a more complete information on our SLO. So do we have any question about this one so far?
It doesn't reflect like the user itself.
Exactly. We like the last part, right? We like the client-side experience. That we would need metrics generated with a different tool. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because later on I will cover that as well. Good. So as you see here, I didn't put the good. I put the almost good. Why? Okay, maybe some weeks ago I would have said, okay, yeah, it's good for us, but I'm going to explain some story behind this SLO. So some weeks ago we had an incident that was affecting a single page. So it was our homepage. Homepage, I believe, for all the companies is a really important page. So new users, SEO campaigns will end into the homepage. And yeah, it's really critical for the business of the company. So yeah, as you see here on the right lower side, we were having only the day of the incident, that was March the 6th. We were only having 11K requests that were considered bad. So our error budget was not really being consumed. So our thought could be that the issue was not that bad because it was an isolated downtime, right? But yeah, obviously our new customers maybe were not that happy. Maybe we were losing some business opportunities. Yeah, so it seems that we have some pending tasks to solve this situation. All right, let's move on with an example of an ugly SLO. As we see here in the title of the SLO, we are trying to analyze those requests that are served faster than 1 second, okay? So as you may know, we are trying to measure our performance. So let's say that our company doesn't have any APM, application monitoring service, set up that can measure and track metrics from the client side to give us the complete metrics of our performance. And this is maybe the only way we found out to be able to measure the performance. Obviously, performance is a good SLO to have, but this is maybe the best way that we can achieve to measure it. So, okay, it's not perfect, it's ugly, but it's something that we want to measure. So we'll keep it. All right, so another ugly SLO I wanted to share with you is from another different set of customers. In this case, is our development team, okay? We are tracking how many jobs of the test suite are failing on master branch. Okay, any pull request that we open should pass the test suite, then we merge to a master, and just before the deployment, we pass again the test suite. And sometimes it fails. So we are tracking that as an SLO failure because we are measuring our dev cycle time, and we want it to be part of, so dev experience is also part of our SLOs. So we track it like this. So why do I say this is ugly? You will see here that we are not deploying huge times. So we have continuous deployments. So maybe it's like, I don't know, 14 times per day. So a single build failing is also quite significant for us. So going back, you see here that in a week, we can only fail 1.5 times our build. So it's ugly because it's difficult for us to set up a proper threshold that we can compromise ourselves to respect. Okay, so I believe we have seen already some examples about the good, some examples about the bad, and a couple of them of the ugly. So maybe here our movie ends, but this is the end. Okay, not yet. Besides taking care of our bad and ugly SLOs, we should try to turn them into good ones, okay? We have also to take care of the good ones that may need attention over time, okay? There are several things that, besides thinking that a good one will be good over time, maybe something changed and we need to revisit it over time. So we have to revisit thresholds. We have to revisit the metrics that we are using to track them. Maybe we are introducing something new in our tech stack. Maybe we did not have a CDN, and now we do. So we need to adapt them. And also, of course, if the business requirements change or new products appear, we will need to revisit everything. All right, so one last thing to take into consideration, and let's go back to this almost good example that we saw before. Depending on the nature of the service that we want to monitor, we may want to consider different queries to cover specific subsets of SLOs. Okay, like our colleague before complained why the 400 is not tracked. In this case, let's show you that we are also tracking our statics endpoint. And when you serve statics to the user, if you hit a 404, the user will see something broken in the page. Maybe missing image, maybe the CSS is broken, maybe some JavaScript feature is not working fine, all right? So in this case, we are also considering the set of 400s as errors, and we track it with this SLO. So this is what we may call as a hierarchical SLO, right? We have a super SLO, and then we may have some subsets of SLO. Also, maybe we can write an SLO that it's not important for our team, but it's really important for other team. But consider that SLOs are not only for SRE team. So SLOs should be maintained for every team, for whatever they are responsible for. So in the case, if you remember that they commented that the homepage was broken, if we have one team that is responsible from the homepage, maybe they need an SLO that is monitoring properly that homepage. Maybe the SEO team wants to take care of that, right? And also it's worth to consider that if we have a single endpoint that it's used for different teams, maybe it's great that the requests are tagged somehow, maybe one header, maybe beyond using some subpath logic that we can divide them, so that every team can be responsible for their own business, let's say. So to wrap up, let's think that we have to always rethink and challenge the SLOs, and the importance that they have for the product. And don't be afraid to start with an ugly SLO, try to iterate over them, because the evolution of those are the key for us. All right, so that should be. If you want to drop any question, now is the moment. Sure. Yeah, it's an example. Imagine that your company is a startup. Okay, that's maybe not a real case for our company, but imagine that your company is on a startup and you don't have enough budget to pay for it, and you are starting. So the point is that you start with the tools that you have. Later on, you iterate, the business is going great, you build more tools, you have better metrics, you turn that ugly SLO into a good one.
Okay. And regarding SLOs, like how often do you reflect on SLOs and how do you reflect on SLOs? So imagine if you have poor performance, like it's like me to team company.
So SLOs for us are like, so the difference between an SLA and SLO is that the SLA has a contractual penalty. Okay, SLO is something that the team is proactively defending and using that to measure the quality that of the product that they are delivering. All right. So for us, if an SLO is going down, we have to address that as soon as possible. We have to defend them, and that may also be used. I don't know. Maybe your company likes a lot your SLOs and say, okay, yeah, if you maintain the SLOs over the year in a good way, you will get bonus. So then you are over motivated to maintain them. But yeah, for us in our case, in the SRE culture, that means that we have to take them seriously. So if an SLO drops, we have to maybe stop our sprint goals and try to address the issue and find a solution. Also, I didn't comment it, but maybe it could happen that some of our SLOs are broken, but not because we did something wrong. Imagine that Cloudflare goes down, has downtime in a certain region, and then we get our error rate rising up. In that case, it's acceptable that you correct the SLO. So it's like, okay, it's true that the customer is not happy, but it's not fair that this downtime is affecting the service level I'm delivering, right? So those SLO tools listed in Datadog, you have some feature that you can mark a period of time and say, okay, ignore it, so that it's not being considered. Any other question? All right. So thank you so much.